welcome to Good Game. I'm Bajo.
And I'm Hex.
Hex, if games were food, tonight we would be feasting.
Yes, on a banquet of rare treats.
Rare but well done.
We also spend a bit of time in a very quaint English village that's just beautiful.
If you ignore all the death.
I saw you doing that. Stay away from me. Don't come near me. This is people's property. You're scaring them. It's all over the village. It's got into everything.
But before all that, can you name the game for this week?
Here's what's making headlines. The Electronic Sports League has announced that they will begin testing professional gamers for performance-enhancing drugs at upcoming events. The move by the ESL aims at maintaining a level playing field for the players, and a partnership between the ESL and the World Anti-Doping Agency will see gamers tested for the same drugs as Olympians. The announcement comes after CSGO pro player Semphis admitted during an interview that he and his team took Adderall, a drug used to treat ADHD, at a recent event.
People can hate it or whatever.
Everyone does Adderall at ESALN, right?
Yeah.
A new crowdfunding platform made solely for the development of indie video games has launched. Fig is an initiative by Justin Bailey from Double Fine. Not only will it offer the usual incentives to backers, early access soundtracks and merchandise, it will also cater to investors who want to get more involved in the process of making games. By investing a larger amount in the game's development, investors will be buying into the game's equity, meaning that if the game sells well, they'll receive a portion of those profits. And that's all for this week.
Thanks, Goose. Rare Replay is a collection of 30 games that spans Rare's history, from their very first game before they were even called Rare, right through to some of their more recent efforts on the Xbox 360.
We've seen plenty of remasters and collections recently, but this one feels unique in its breadth. If you'll pardon the pun, it's quite rare to see one developer put so much of its history into one game.
It is worth noting, though, that the studio does have a catalogue of well over 100 games, so there are still plenty of games missing. And due to various licensing issues, there's no sign of their Donkey Kong games, and there's no GoldenEye. Oh, which is such a shame, because I think we can all agree that's some of Rare's best work.
Yeah, also none of their Kinect sports games are here either. I don't think anyone's going to be upset about that.
No. Well, let's dive in and talk about the games that are actually here, and I suppose we should start with the oldest games in the collection.
Yes, and I'm just going to say it, Hex, everything before Battletoads is rubbish.
Oh, I think that seems pretty harsh, Bajo. I mean, some of these games are from the 80s, and, you know, they were well received at the time.
Yes, and they have not aged well. I admit I didn't spend a lot of time with many of them because they're just awful. I mean, what's going on here? What's this about? Quite frankly, I don't want to know.
Yeah, some of them are a little difficult to get your head around. But I did like that they've given you the ability to rewind the games up to a minute, though, which really takes the edge off a lot of that brutal old-school difficulty.
Oh, playing these old games always reminds me just how hard they used to be, and that rewind is just so good. In fact, it's the only thing that can help these old, tired gaming hands get through something as tough as Battletoads.
Your hands are... oh, yeah, they're pretty old.
There's a lot of cracks.
Moisturize.
Inside my joints.
Yeah. Also, they have modifiers to give you infinite lives if you just want to straight up cheat your way through. And there's save states too, so you won't lose your progress when you quit out.
And I did like the idea of the snapshots mode. They're basically bite-sized challenges of all the older games, which remixes them into something much more digestible. But even so, for most of the games, just one snapshot was enough for me.
Oh, they're not all that bad, Bajo.
No, that's true. I did quite like the RC Pro games. And Cobra Triangle was fun. And I did appreciate having all these games here. It's nice to be able to go back and play through their history to see how they've evolved over the years. You might not want to play them all again, but it's just nice to see the studio's evolution. And any chance to play Battletoads, Hex, and I'll take it.
Yeah, they definitely deserve credit for embracing their history, good and bad. And, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have really fond memories of some of those older games who are really going to get a kick out of playing them again.
Once you move to the Nintendo 64 era, things really pick up. I never actually had an N64, and I skipped over a lot of the remakes except for Perfect Dark. So I was quite keen to see what all the fuss was about with these Banjo-Kazooie games and spend some real time with them, and they're actually quite good platformers, aren't they?
Wow, heaps late to the party, Bajo. But yeah, they are some of the best platformers of all time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And how good is Blast Corps? Such a simple idea. You just smash through buildings to clear the way for an unstoppable runaway truck loaded with nuclear weapons. It's great. Jet Force Gemini, though, wasn't a fan of that one. Third-person controls have come a long way, and this was just...
Yeah, that is a slightly more difficult one to go back to. But they did patch in some more modern controls, which made it a bit easier to try. Well, a lot easier, actually. On default, I was just rolling around with no idea what I was doing. What did you think of Conker?
Well, the platforming is a bit stilted compared to Banjo, and the references are quite dated now. But overall, it still holds up pretty well, and I'm always partial to a good poo joke or two, Hex, which it more than delivers on.
It's off my butt.
Your butt.
My butt.
Your butt.
That's right, my butt.
Ugh.
My butt. My butt.
Yeah, it's a game that lives or dies by its humour, which is definitely on the crass and juvenile side. I can't get that cow with explosive diarrhea out of my brain. It's just going to be in there forever. But if you like that sort of thing, it's the game for you.
There's also Killer Instinct, which was one of my all-time favourite fighters as a kid. So many combos, Hex. And there's Rare's one and only original Xbox game, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, which I did not like. Good title, though.
Yeah, it does get a bit repetitive and the QuickTime events are overused, but it is also aimed at younger audiences who I think will enjoy this kind of haunted house, Scooby-Doo-esque vibe.
I don't know, Hex. Kids these days are into Slender Man and Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah.
This might be a little bit too tame.
Moving on to the Xbox 360 era of Rare games, and things are even more of a mixed bag. Perfect Dark Zero is a bit of a mess of a shooter with clunky controls and a pretty uninspired campaign. I quite liked Cameo though. Its bright visuals still hold up well and there's a fun adventure game in there.
I have to admit, I still enjoy the Viva Pinata games. At first, they always seemed kind of dumb, but before I knew it, I'd lost hours into my little virtual garden of candy creatures. Gotta catch 'em all, Hex.
I don't know, they just didn't really grab me to be honest. And I know people really loved these games, but they were just a bit slow and aimless for my liking. They are very colourful and charming games to look at though.
Hurry up, you incompetent code monkey! I have Pinata to capture!
Moving on to the final game in the collection, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Yes. Now this understandably disappointed a lot of Banjo fans when it was released because it isn't really a Banjo-Kazooie game. Instead, it's a sort of vehicle construction game. But it's actually a pretty good sort of vehicle construction game.
Yeah, it's decent, but that frame rate, Hex, borderline unplayable.
Oh, it's bad, sure, but I don't think it's unplayable.
So bad. What did you think of the overall presentation, though?
Amazing. I love that whole little musical number when you start it up, and there's a whole lot of extra content to unlock.
I did some of the voices for Banjo then, and then it transformed into the gargled noise at the end, so the...
It seems like a lot of work to unlock them all, and it's probably just easier watching them online. What did you think of the split between on-disc games and ones you have to download?
Well, that is a little confusing. So all their pre-Nintendo 64 games are in the main game. But their 64 games that got remastered for 360, like Banjo and Perfect Dark, are separate downloads. But most 64 games are in the main game, while all 360 games are also separate downloads.
Yeah, something to keep in mind. You'll have to download about 40 gig if you want to play everything. What did you think overall, Hex?
Well, I think it's a collection of games that's going to mean different things to different people depending on what games they grew up with. But no matter how you look at it, it's great value, so I'm giving it 4.
Yeah, there's some truly awful games here that don't stand up at all, but there's enough great ones to make this worthwhile, so I'm giving it 4 too.
I tried to command my warriors to stop her, but before I even blinked an eye, this massive troll caught me off guard.
A massive troll? It is worse than I feared.
And now Goose looks back at the life of a truly influential figure in the gaming industry.
On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
With the sudden passing of Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata last month, I and many others were left grieving the loss of a true titan of our industry. And looking back through his life's accomplishments, it's humbling when you realise just how much of an influence on gaming he's had. So I wanted to take this chance to remember and celebrate the life of a man who made it his mission to bring as much joy to the world as he could through the thing he loved most, games. Satoru Iwata was born in 1959 in Sapporo, and by high school he was already creating basic games on his calculator.
My first creation was a baseball game. I don't think anyone can say it has bad graphics because it has no graphics. But when I saw my friends playing that game, and having fun, it made me feel proud. To me, this was a source of energy and passion.
In his spare time while studying at university, he would help make games with a small group of friends. This group would go on to become HAL Laboratory. He joined them full-time after graduating and helped forge a close relationship with Nintendo so they could publish games on the upcoming NES. From that relationship, Iwata was instrumental in developing games both with HAL and directly with Nintendo. However, the studio soon found itself struggling financially. So, at the insistence of the president of Nintendo, Hiroshi Yamauchi, Iwata was made the president of HAL in 1993, where he turned their fortunes around. Despite being president, he was always keen to get his hands stuck into the code, and due to his close relationship with Nintendo, he ended up assisting on several of their games. According to many stories, he helped save several games' troubled development, and apparently single-handedly ported Pokemon's battle system over to Nintendo 64 for Pokemon Stadium. Perhaps one of his greatest successes came in 1999 when he championed an idea by Masahiro Sakurai to get Nintendo's stable of lovable characters into one game to beat each other up. The idea was met with a lot of skepticism within Nintendo.
There were people both inside and outside Nintendo who did not strongly favor our idea. When testers began picking up the controllers, people smiled, then laughed, then began shouting to each other. That was the moment when everything for Smash Bros. Changed.
The following year, Nintendo hired him and immediately placed him in a senior role as head of corporate planning. Within 2 years under his watch, Nintendo's profits had increased a massive 41%. And after those 2 successful years, Nintendo's Hiroshi Yamauchi called Mr. Iwata into his office and revealed he was stepping down as president after half a century and that he wanted Iwata to take over.
At Nintendo, we do not run from risk. We run to it. We are taking the risk to move beyond current boundaries.
Yamauchi left him in charge with one request, that Nintendo give birth to wholly new ideas and create hardware that reflects that ideal, and make software that adheres to the same standard. A request we would see Iwata take to heart. He took charge during the transition between the Nintendo 64 to the less successful GameCube, a tough period for Nintendo. There was stronger competition than ever from Sony and Microsoft, and the previous king of gaming found itself languishing in third place.
Only on Nintendo GameCube.
But Iwata had some grand plans, which were revealed with the DS. The oddball handheld was met with skepticism, especially with Sony's rival PSP expected to crush it in both sales and hardware specs.
It is different.
But this was Iwata's Nintendo, a Nintendo that didn't want to compete with graphics and hardware. It wanted to compete with fun and unique experiences that spoke to people of all backgrounds.
Making games look more photorealistic is not the only means of improving the game experience. I know, on this point, I risk being misunderstood. So remember, I am a man who once programmed a baseball game with no baseball players. If anyone appreciates graphics, it's me.
The DS was a massive success, thanks in no small part to its easy-to-use touchscreen and broad range of software. Alongside fan-favourite franchises sat games like Brain Age and Nintendogs, which helped the DS reach that blue ocean of yet-to-be gamers that our industry had almost completely ignored for so long.
Our goal, to show them surprise, to convince them that above all, video games are meant to be just one thing: fun.
In total, it sold over 150 million units, making it the best-selling handheld and second best-selling console of all time. But he wasn't done fishing in that big blue ocean. Codenamed Revolution, the Wii once again left many scratching their heads when they first saw the infamous Wiimote.
It breaks down a barrier to non-gamers.
It was a controller that only needed to be picked up to be understood. It proved to be a cultural phenomenon. It created new types of games, new ways to play, and perhaps most importantly, it created new gamers. It was sold out for months after release, and within a year, every family seemed to have a Wii and had transformed into a household of gamers.
Today, there are people who play and people who do not. We will help destroy that wall between them.
It dominated the market, becoming the only console of the generation to sell more than 100 million units. It was so successful that both rivals eventually created their own motion controls. And as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. The runaway success of the DS and the Wii was a golden age for Nintendo. Unfortunately, this success proved hard for Iwata to replicate with the 3DS and the Wii U, but both consoles embody his willingness to take risks and try something new, and offer something different in an industry that's so often plagued with the same tried and true ideas. And they're both undeniably loaded with great games, which was a hallmark of Nintendo that Iwata safeguarded beyond all else. To him, it was a company that needed to be committed to making the best games they can, no matter what. They're often thought of as being like the Disney of video games, products always made with a level of assured talent and heart. During his tenure, he also made it a point to take the time to open a dialogue with developers through his lengthy Iwata Asks interviews.
It's not about game density, it's about the density of play.
These gave the creators, who he held in the highest regard, a chance to share their visions and their stories behind the games they made. And of course, he wanted to do the same thing with gamers.
Hello, everyone. This is Satoru Iwata from Nintendo.
Launching the Nintendo Direct announcements, where they could deliver all the latest updates and news directly to fans. And he always did it with a sense of humour and passion that's almost unheard of from a CEO. In his last few months, Iwata made one of his most surprising, yet perhaps inevitable announcements of his tenure, that Nintendo would now be partnering with DNA to make mobile games, a big break from tradition for a company that for years insisted that its business relied on creating exclusive software to sell its hardware. But he recognised that mobile was now where that blue ocean was, and with the billions of mobiles out there, such a move might be the perfect way to get Nintendo's characters and quality games to bring smiles to as many people as they could. Sadly, however, you'll never be able to see that reality take shape.
Unless we change, we can never increase the gameplay population.
In one of his last public comments after what many saw as a disappointing showing at this year's E3 by Nintendo, Iwata publicly apologised for it, saying he took gamers' feedback seriously and that they would work better to meet expectations. It's tragic that he left on such a note, with a company on the back foot and a community unimpressed. But such a comment spoke deeply to the type of man that Iwata was. He would speak directly to us, and he'd listen to us no matter what we had to say, always with a humble gratitude that we cared enough to say it.
Even if we come from different sides of the world, speak different languages, even if we eat too many chips or rice balls, even if we have different tastes in games, every one of us here today is identical.
For me, I'm going to remember him as a man responsible for helping our industry grow and build into something more inclusive and friendly than ever. I'll remember him as a gamer and as a developer who made games loved by millions. As a man who loved games with an infectious passion and made it his life's work to bring that love to the whole world right up until the very end. So thank you, Mr. Iwata, for everything.
Every one of us here today is identical in the most important way. Each one of us has the heart of the gamer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Goose. Hex, according to most movies and games, the apocalypse is coming, and it's going to be a brown, dusty, hellish nightmare where groups of bandits kill me, or force me to join them, or force me to join them and then kill me and then eat me. I can't wait.
But before it turns into that wasteland, maybe it'll look a little something like this. An abandoned English village where everybody's gone to the Rapture.
The event has left markers. We don't understand it yet, but we're going to keep working to try and understand it. The answers are in the light.
Developed by the Chinese Room, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is their follow-up to Dear Esther, which was a slow, melancholic experiment in narrative and mood.
Those islands in the distance, I'm sure, are nothing more than relics of another time. Sleeping giants, somnambulist gods laid down for a final dreaming.
You play as someone. An unknown person who starts the game looking out over the serene, idyllic village of Yorton. The kind of town you might move to when you retire, or the kind of town you want to move away from if you were born there.
Well, pretty much everyone who was born there has got out, because the entire place is deserted. Cars abandoned in the street, houses and shops left unlocked.
Hello?
Even the cows are missing, Hex.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there could be a bunch of cows up in heaven right now with all the salt licks they could hope for.
And it's this mystery that is the center of this entire game.
Yeah, where did all the cows go?
Yes, them and everyone else. And it's your job to figure it out, but you're not alone, at least not technically. Mysterious balls of light are scattered around the town, and they trigger echoes of conversations between citizens before you arrived.
People need somewhere to talk, to feel safe.
Perhaps they don't think that your church is somewhere they feel particularly safe.
And it has to be said, these conversations are superbly voice acted.
So I told you it would get stuck.
Should have just taken the cards. It was a stupid idea.
I mean, the game is full of dialogue, and the acting is some of the best I've heard in years.
I came to see if I could borrow a ladder.
Bloody hell, there's a 12-foot drop the other side of that wall.
I'm old, but I'm not useless, no. Can I borrow the ladder?
No one said you were useless.
You get the sense that these are real people who have real lives.
Except they're not, because everybody's gone to the Rapture.
Or maybe they haven't. One of the first conversations you have in the game hints that maybe there's something more scientific than spiritual here. And throughout the game, the characters you encounter struggle with these two ideas constantly.
Your lot up at Valis have never mixed with the local community. People here, they don't really understand what you do up there.
Are you trying to get me to come to your church?
And while the ideas behind the plot are interesting, there is one major issue I had with this game right from the start. You know what I'm going to say, don't you, Hex?
Yeah, the walking.
Oh, the walking. There's so much walking. Anytime you're not talking to a ball of light, you're just walking. And that is a lot. It is a literal drag.
Oh, off we go. Chasing the balls. Dun 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 dun. Picking up speed, picking up speed. Oh, come on. It's an apocalypse, run faster. Maybe I'm a robot and I'm just really heavy. Maybe I'm overburdened. Maybe I need to dump some iron daggers.
Yes, there is a lot of walking, but you can run a bit as well.
Not that you would have known.
No, you're right. I think in the rush to get this game out the door, the developers maybe just forgot to add that to the control menu. So no one knew it existed, and no one noticed because to run, you hold down R2, but you don't start running until you build up some momentum, which doesn't happen for about 5 seconds.
I can't believe they forgot to tell the player they could run. I do think it is a pretty rubbish run mechanic though. It doesn't actually speed up the pace of the game much at all. I found it fiddly and buggy, and by the time you manage to get a full run going, you've already reached where you need to be, which makes it a bit pointless. Call me shallow, Hex, but the pace of this game is actually a deal breaker for me.
You're shallow, Bajo.
No, I'm not.
Well, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, for me, playing games like this is kind of like a dream. You're just slowly drifting through, and if you had to sprint through the whole thing, it would just ruin the ambience.
I don't think so. I don't like being forced to go slow just so I can absorb game design. I think I can handle it. I can take it in going at my own pace. Plus, I wouldn't be frustrated all the time.
Slow. No problem.
But at least while you're slowly walking around, you can enjoy the game's environment, which is nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, it's a proper town, Bajo. I just feel like I'm walking through an entirely real space, except with even better lighting than we'd get with our boring normal eyes in real life. And as the game progresses, you leave the main village area and head into the woods, and then up to a collection of cottages, and down to a holiday park. It's just such an organic flow to the layout of the game that it doesn't feel constructed. Yeah, to me, this village does exist somewhere.
And it's just stunning. The PS4 is really getting a chance to stretch its legs here. Every shadow in this game is my favourite shadow in any game. The detail is extraordinary. I guess since the devs were creating a game in a contained area with minimal interaction, they had the time to make sure every phone is grimy, every door has paint chips flecked off, every butterfly is dancing its own majestic everyone is dead but me dance. If the apocalypse is this good looking, bring it on.
Yeah, it's almost distractingly realistic, and the sound design is also impeccable. Since the whole town is deserted, the game uses silence in a really effective way. Throughout the course of the game, I became conscious of just how much noise I was making. It really adds to the idea that you're an intruder.
The valley, Stephen, everything was simply irrelevant. an idea of something, not a something itself.
You aren't supposed to be here.
You're not. You're not supposed to be here because everybody's gone to the Rapture.
Yeah, we get it.
And the music. Every time it swelled up, I was biting back Pixar tears. To me, it was honestly the most exciting part of this game, but I just wish there was more to do. It felt so empty.
Yeah, but that's the point. Everyone's dead.
I know, but I just felt like I spent 4 hours walking around a pretty painting, listening to people talk. We've seen games like this before with Dear Esther and Gone Home, but at least in Gone Home, you could interact with almost everything. With this, I felt like I was visiting my grandmother's house. Everything's pretty and looks like it belongs to someone who has recently died, but you mustn't touch, Bajo.
Well, for me, the mystery pulled me through until the end. I mean, there may not be a lot of action in it, but they dish out the story beats fast and thick.
Oh, Amanda, I thought you'd left town.
Every conversation teaches you something new about these characters and what happened here. These people were confronted with something beyond their understanding and reacted like people do in that scenario, with fear, confusion, but also with love and camaraderie.
Do you understand? No, we can't turn it away. It's come too far.
It's a game where you watch people overcome their flaws in the face of great loss.
They've taken my shoe, sir.
Howard! Howard Latham! You open the door this instant, young man.
And in the end, I found I was reflecting on my own life as much as those of the others in the game. It was all very moving. I'm giving this 4 out of 5 stars.
I wish I could enjoy this kind of game in the way you do, Hex, but I just don't. And I do have a deep respect for this game and what it's setting out to do, but I just think it has major problems in the way that it forces me to absorb information. I find that really frustrating, and I felt like more of a spectator than a participant, so I'm giving it 2.5 stars.
Everything will be all right. Just try and calm down and tell me where Neil and the children are.
They're upstairs.
Hey, Bajo, has Goose been looking a little strange to you recently?
No more than usual.
There's something more suspicious about him lately.
Where are you going with this, Hex?
Run with me on this. Goose would have known that I would ask him to do an autopsy on the broken arcade.
Yeah?
He also knew that Nick was the last one to use the arcade, making him the prime suspect.
That's true!
So, what if he broke the arcade after Nick, giving him access to all the internals of the arcade, but none of the suspicion? I mean, you know how he likes his retro stuff.
Yeah. Also, I saw him by the docks this morning building an arcade machine.
Bajo, our game may have just been named. It was Eggerland Mystery, released in 1985. In the game, you played as a little round character known as Lolo, and it was your mission to rescue Princess Lala from the evil King Egger. Puzzle solving was the main mechanic, and it would eventually be released outside of Japan as Adventures of Lolo on the NES. And it's our name the game because it was developed by HAL Laboratory, the company where Satoru Iwata first made a name for himself.
Next week on the show, a group of teenagers try to stay alive until dawn.
Let's make this one trip we will never forget.
Whoa, looks scary. You know what is also scary, Bajo?
Clowns.
Yes, but more realistic than that. Good Game Live is mere weeks away. We've been hard at work rehearsing the show, and we are still completely unprepared.
Yeah, we'll just wing it, Hex.
Say Hex is like my sister or my mom or something. I'll be playing the game. Go,
The Bugle Baby Magnet Trumpet.
Yeah.
Bugle.
The show is happening September 5th at the Enmore Theatre in Sydney. And if you have a younger gamer in your life, you may want to bring them along to Spawn Point Live, which is happening at 2 p.m. on the same day.
You can find out all the info about both shows on our various social medias. Until next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Bajo out. Shall we give him a sneak peek?
A cheeky preview.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Why don't you put that pea shooter down and face me like a real gamer?
I got next game.
That's it, that's all you get. Look quite good in that outfit, I thought.
Yeah? I wish I could wear that outfit all the time.
Yeah,
I feel really tough in
you
it.
would look totally crazy.
It's pretty heavy though.
But I would support you.
Yeah?